In this video, we are going to discuss the requirements of an act. So we will cover the two requisites of each crime, the meaning of actus reus and mens rea, and what constitutes an act for the purposes of meeting the actus reus requirement. Now, in order for a defendant to be found guilty in a criminal trial, the prosecution has to establish beyond a reasonable doubt the required actus reus and the required mens rea. So the actus reus basically has three ingredients. It is a voluntary act or a failure to perform an act that causes social harm. So it has to be voluntary. So involuntary movement isn't enough to constitute a criminal act. You have a reflex that causes a crime to occur, and it's a muscle spasm, for instance, then it would not meet the actus reus requirement. One of the classic examples is an involuntary movement as a muscle spasm that causes a pistol to discharge and that bullet kills someone. Well, if the person had a muscle spasm that can be proven, then there's not enough to establish murder. Now, it doesn't mean that the person won't be charged with a different crime, but the prosecution would have difficulty to establish the actus reus for murder. So then also I said that omission to act can also constitute actus reus. So imagine that you're at a local swimming pool and you witness a child drowning. Now, you aren't a great swimmer yourself, so you do nothing. Have you committed a crime? The law says you haven't. The usual reasoning is because people should be punished only for deliberately adding to human misery, not necessarily for being indifferent to it. And that would be different if you shoved the child in the pool and then did nothing to help. You've caused an accident, you've put someone in harm's way, so you have a duty to provide assistance. The same thing with a doctor driving down the highway, witnesses an accident and does nothing to help. Well, he has a moral obligation to act, but he doesn't have a legal duty to act. However, if he's the one that caused that accident, then he does have a duty to act, to render assistance to that person. Now, a legal duty to act and an act of omission can include a parent where they have a legal duty to protect their children, or duties established by contractual relationships between two parties. So going back to my example of at the swimming pool, let's say that you're the babysitter and you promised the parents that you would watch the child and you take your eyes off the child and the child drowns. Well, the actus reus may be met because you had a contractual relationship to save that child. You told the parents you would watch it and then you didn't. Also, the parents, if the parents are there and they watch the child drowning in a shallow pool and they do nothing to help, the same thing, they have a legal duty to protect their children. So then that brings us to the mens rea. The actus reus and the mens rea have to occur at the same time. Now, a good way to remember this and the difference between the two, actus reus means the guilty act. Take the root word act and just know that when you hear actus reus, it means guilty act. Same thing with mens rea. It always helped me to remember the M and know that that went with mind. So it's the guilty mind or the culpability has to accompany the act. There's different crimes require different degrees of intent, which we will cover in the next video.